Frontier opening bell Thursday, the 10th of April. Of course, you've got the big news. President Donald Trump taking his fingers off the tariff buttons, at least for the next 90 days. That decision to pause the retaliatory tariffs on a number of companies still really in the markets. Oil prices down very sharply today. The market still trying to figure out how to deal with the one step forward, one step backward, as it were. China, however, is not out of that reprieve, 90-day reprieve by President Trump. So the 125% tariff, tit for tat between Beijing and Washington stays in place. All that in the news as we see towards the end of a very tumultuous week. Equity prices, globally speaking, turning back into green emerging markets. Stocks and currencies also rebounding after a nail-biting week as we speak. Goldman Sachs this morning reporting on Bloomberg that Saudi Arabia could see $67 billion budget deficit because of the drop that we saw in oil prices. London Brent trading around $63 this morning. The US WTI around the $60 handle. Welcome to yet another morning, another day in President Trump's tariff war. Let's get on to see how the markets, and you can see the sea of red across the African equities market. Wednesday, Nigerian market fell by 18 points. The BRVM in Cote d'Ivoire, the composite, down by 1%. The Egyptian stock market, roughly 2%. The EGX30 holding the tailcoats of 30,000. NSE in Nairobi down, much bigger, 2.6%. The biggest exchange on the continent, the GSC, was down 2.07%. It's a whole lot of bloodletting for frontier African markets. But let's move on and grab a couple of headlines, starting with the East African corridor. Of course, the Trump tariffs, 90 days haters, is the biggest news. Everyone is trying to get a sense of it with the whole big trillions of dollars and sell down in bonds, globally speaking. Now we have the Kenya power in corporate news now moving within the region, getting 12 billion shillings EFDB money for third phase of the last mile of bringing electricity to folks in Kenya. And that's some good news there. The EFDB supporting that very actively. The last mile is the most important part of sustainable electricity on the continent. That was the message out of Dar es Salaam back in January of the African Energy Summit. The EFDB, however, has fined the Kenyan authorities nearly 120 million shillings for delaying the kidney hospital project in which the EFDB has a skin in the game. In Ethiopia, he has unveiled 45 million euros project that will help to revitalize those river watersheds, the Abe, Awash, and Tekeze rivers. In corporate news back in Kenya, the KCB Bank has cut the base lending rate to 13.85% per annum as the banks try to grapple with the interest rate decision a few days ago by the Dr. Thugge's administration, the central bank. And finally, Tanzania and Angola said they have a deal to boost trade and investment between the two countries. And that's the latest within that as far as trade relations concerned. Let me just take you straight to West Africa. Today, the Afreximbank is unveiling its Africa Trade Center. It's called ATC in Abuja, Nigeria's political capital. It's one of those trade centers that the Afreximbank is setting up to fast-track intra-Africa trade between the IETF and the ASCFTA of the African Union, as well as the Afreximbank. Congratulations to Dr. Benedict Orama and the rest of the team. And good news, the AFC, the Africa Finance Corporation, headquartered in Nigeria, reporting a record $1.1 billion in annual revenue for last year, while the Nigerian Exchange Group yesterday evening sent forth about 16 retired directors, some of them pioneering over the last 10, 15 years of the history of the exchange, including some of those directors that were on board before the demutualization some 5 years ago, and those who served on the board of the NGX in the first instance as the transition directors of the exchange. However, the group is paying 2 naira per share. The annual shareholders meeting, 64th edition, was held yesterday morning. Final dividend for full year 2024. And Nigeria has reported, according to the central bank, roughly $1.9 billion in payment surplus, what they call trade surplus for last year, which the central bank says is giving the firepower to the economy and says the economy is on track, despite the impact of the two reforms that were carried out in 2023, the exchange rate normalization, as well as the removal of fuel subsidy. Next door in Ghana, the authority says it's holding the farm gate cocoa prices unchanged. That's according to Cocoa Board. That's the agency responsible for cocoa trade, setting prices and managing relationship between traders and farmers and all of that in Ghana. In Mali, state government reporting gold mining revenue for the authorities jumped 52.5% in 2024. That's some good news for the military junta in Mali that's had that very face-off with Barrick Gold, seizing some gold, seizing some of the mining side, renegotiating mining deals with the mining companies. Now, the government is reporting 52% jump in the share that the Mali's authorities got from gold mining in the country revenue. Some good news. Let's push it down to Southern Africa, and of course the trade relations between and bilateral relations between Washington and Pretoria remain very tense, as it were. Emerging markets, stocks and currencies mentioned at the start of the show are rebounding. Let's see how the markets look today. Within the commercial region, which is the copper market for East and Southern Africa, so they've launched $2.5 billion digital inclusion program for East and Southern African region. Anglo-American reporting that the talks are still on between the mining giant listed on the London Stock Exchange as well as on the GSE, with Peabody to sell the coal assets of Anglo-Am for roughly $4 billion US. That's about 3.78 billion to be actual. Now, Angola's Sonangol, that's the state oil corporation, is looking for $4.8 billion to bridge the Lobito refinery funding gap. The refinery is the biggest in Angola and is looking to ramp up on that facility, as well as 5 other smaller refineries that Angola is putting in place. The whole idea is to make the Gulf of Guinea, which includes Nigeria, the hub for oil refinery on the African continent. And the Afreximbank is putting about $3 billion US on the back of those oil refineries. Let's move forward. Namibia, diamond revenue down 33%, no thanks to the slump in global demand for the precious metal for last year. And Mozambique says it's approved ENI, that's the Italian energy giant's Coral Norte's floating LNG, liquefied natural gas plant, for the big project that's sitting in the southern African country. And finally, in North Africa. And Morocco secured an award as the best, what you call the best investment promotion agency. That's Morocco's investment and export agency has got the best according to the latest award within the MENA region. That's the Middle East and North Africa. Congratulations. Take it up. Tunisia and Algeria says they have an agreement to have a closer tie on economic cooperation. Well, of course, remember the face-off between Algeria and a few countries within that region, Mali and Burkina Faso. You got oil prices, losses are returning because of the trade war angst. Brent down roughly 2.5% early Thursday. And Egypt and Saxony exploring enhanced education, trade, green energy bond cooperation. All of that in the news as we look forward to the end of the week. It's a Thank God Friday tomorrow. Just keep on to that to the 11th. For now, have a profitable trading day.